So this might be the most important comic you read all this year. So let's dig in to Lies My Teacher Told Me. This is a graphic novel adaptation of a very famous book that was written all the way back in 1995. Lucky for you, I have it right here. So Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong. It's written by James Loewen. Like I said, this originally released in 1995. It was updated in 2007, which would be when I heard about it. I was taking an African American history class in high school, and my teacher was ranting and raving and had us, he printed out excerpts of this book for us to study for different assignments. So that's when I became aware of it. It was updated once again, I believe in 2018. So very cool stuff. Basically what this book is, if you've ever heard of it or seen it, or never heard of it, I should say. But this is a book basically talking about, it's a critique of how American history textbooks often get American history wrong. And there's a lot of information about, why that is, like the different biases, the politics that go into getting a textbook approved to actually be taught in a classroom. This author, James Loewen, actually wrote a textbook about Mississippi, where he's from, and it got banned, or they refused to adopt it in the Mississippi public school system. And he actually sued through the federal government to basically get them to reverse that decision and allow them to teach from that book. And that experience is what prompted him to go through, write this book. And so while it's kind of an expose on how American history textbooks are written and adopted nationwide, it's also a history lesson. There are tons of just different anecdotes and examples that he gives to show you that the history you learn in your textbook is, omitting things at best, willfully misleading at worst. And in either case, it's state sanctioned. So that's interesting stuff. But this 2024 graphic adaptation is done by Nate Powell. And Nate Powell is a name that you're probably familiar with from the March trilogy that he wrote or drew with the late Congressman John Lewis and Andrew Iden. They also did the Run book. I featured all four of those during my Black History Month comic haul earlier this year, so you can check those out. But Nate Powell he's kind of made a name for himself doing these nonfiction comic projects that sort of help you reframe and empathize with historical figures. So James Loewen actually reached out to him directly to adapt this book. And this is published by the New Press, who also published the original. And I'm going to start flipping through here because I feel like I'm just talking. So basically what this book adapts is a textbook that is a textbook. It's not a textbook, but it's an academic text that's nearly 500 pages long. And what it does is it kind of makes the same case as the original from the author's point of view. So it's written from James Loewen's point of view. He's a teacher in this book. So he's a character in the book, basically. And, it kind of cuts to like some of the best stories, or maybe the most shocking revelations that are in the original text. Like, for example, there's a whole section on Christopher Columbus and how, Native Americans were actually treated in the United States. There's a section about Helen Keller, basically about everything that happened to her or that she did after, she actually learned how to do sign language and stuff like that. So really interesting things that you probably never learned in your high school history class. That's the whole thesis of the book. The whole point of the book is these are things that verifiably happened and just you didn't know because your textbooks never showed it. And then what's cool about this is that because this book was written in 1995, but it was updated several times after, there are more updates and anecdotes and examples of how things that were in textbooks in 1995 were still in the textbooks the same way in 2007, even if we knew more information about them. Now, if you're not familiar with Nate Powell's work, he often, as a matter of fact, every time I've seen a graphic novel with his name on it, the the art is actually in black and white. There's no colors. This, by the way, is James Loewen. That's his character represented here. Pretty good likeness. But what I love about this is that this takes the very academic, very sort of dry and potentially dull reading, which I shouldn't call it dull because there's actually a lot of life in the original text. There's a lot of attitude in the original text. It's an entertaining read, even though it is dense, right? But this, takes some of the density out of it. Having the illustrations really kind of helps convey the feeling that you're supposed to get by reading the book. Having James Loewen as a character in the book really helps to get the point across as well. And I don't know, man, it's just cool that this text has been sort of revamped, revitalized in the time that we're in now. Now, when I heard about this book in 2007, we were just on the cusp of the Obama election. Obama might have just done the DNC speech and all that. So he was like a rising star. But I remember like Hillary was running and, it was just a different energy about things. And ever since the 2008 election, not to get crazy political, but this is a political text, there's just been a very different energy toward academia. And where the argument in this book is that basically textbooks are governed by fairly conservative bodies that, at best give a revisionist history of the things that happen, right? There's been a huge sort of counter movement among state legislatures in the last 12 to 15 years to like ban different books. And, there's all this talk of critical race theory. And now there's like attack on diversity and in education and stuff like that. So this book in a lot of ways feels more radical now than it did 20 years ago when it was written, or 30 years ago when it was originally written. And that's interesting to me, just as I say it all the time, but I'm a student of history. My major in college was African-American history along with marketing. And so a lot of this stuff, it's interesting to see how history kind of repeats itself. And of course, the famous quote being that if you don't know or understand your history, then you are doomed to repeat it. And so if there are all these things in this book that we never learn, then how will we avoid, making some of the same mistakes that our forefathers did? So very interesting stuff. But there's information about like the Cuban Missile Crisis and the like Haiti and the politics of Haiti and how we sort of drained Haiti of their resources, which is interesting considering the reason Haitians have been in the news in the last couple of weeks as I'm filming this. There's even information about like the FBI's surveillance of Martin Luther King and how they had credible like intelligence about his potential assassination and just refused to warn him about it. There's a lot of really cool facts in this book that, I guess depending on the audience might seem incendiary, but are 100% true. So it's just objective information. Even if the illustrations might kind of sort of inform the way you receive that information. But I feel like that's the best part of this. Because what you have to do in a text that, lays out so much as fact, you got to back it up forwards, backwards, sideways. Like you got to be able to say, no, this unequivocally happened, or else you're opening yourself up to all sorts of lawsuits and things like that. But in the original text, you get that there are tons of footnotes and appendices, and like, look at all these notes, just adding more and more and more context to the things that we see in the book. This graphic novel adaptation doesn't really do any of that. Instead, it's really an encouragement for you to go seek out the original text and read that, which, by the way, the original text is still in print. It's available from the New Press right now. They actually sent this a review copy of this graphic novel, as well as this copy of the original Lies My Teacher Told Me. So you can grab both of them. They're available on Amazon. They're available wherever books are sold. And I think it might be the most important comic you read this year. So that's going to do it for my overview and review. Huge thanks to the New Press for sending these review copies for me to show you. And I'll see you guys in another review soon. Till then, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.